and welcome to Gardening with the Gardeners, a podcast where we discuss our favorite plants, gardens, landscape design, and all things horticulture, with a touch of our crazy homestead lifestyle thrown in.
I'm one of your hosts, Matthew Boone Gardner, a horticulturalist, landscape designer, and fourth-generation owner-operator of Boone Gardner Landscape.
And I'm Hope Gardner, Matt's wife, a horticulturalist with our local county extension office, as well as a landscape designer with a family business. And together, we make up Gardening with the Gardeners.
And we're back.
Fantastic. I'm very excited.
You are very excited about this one. This is one you've been talking about since before we started the podcast.
I know. I've been waiting so long to do this one, and I'm very excited.
We're episode
number 7. Yes.
Awesome. And this is one of Hope's absolute favorite plants, and has become an obsession for her.
Oh, now come on. Obsession is kind of a strong word.
Dahlias.
Yes.
Dahlias. You literally, yes.
I do. I have very much enjoyed growing dahlias. I grow a very wide variety of dahlias and have just really, really fallen in love with just how many different varieties and colors and combinations that there are.
I say obsession because you do have a binder that you keep
I
organized, and you're constantly looking at catalogs and online, and you're literally on Instagram looking at pictures of just dahlias after dahlias.
I have a wish list. You're exactly right. So when I started in growing them in, I guess, 22, I started with a list of like ones I wanted. And then that fall, we dug them, and I did not do a very diligent job of keeping track of which tuber was which variety. So in 23, I realized that I wanted to keep track of them a little bit better. So in my binder, I actually have a color printout of the flower and then that variety and a description of it. Mm-hmm. And so I am very good. And I know we've talked about keeping like a layout of like a vegetable garden so you can do your crop rotation. So I actually keep a layout of my garden and where I plant my dahlia varieties each year. So I can kind of keep track of how many I have, of what variety, and where they're planted. So that is in my binder, and then, like I said, the printout of each variety and the color, so I know exactly what bloom and what their name is. So I do go a little bit over the top, but I do try to keep very detailed notes on the dahlias that I have.
So I think I could literally just go into the room and hang out and let you do this episode, but that wouldn't be very fun. So.
No, because you do have a lot to say.
Well, and I've learned a lot about them from you, and they're really cool.
I have drug you kicking and screaming, I think, to the love of dahlias.
Well, yeah, just because there's constantly another credit card statement with that.
I don't use my credit card to buy my dahlias, thank you very much. But I do have a tendency. Right now, they just finished up with a lot of pre-order sales, but most of the farms, the companies that raise them, will actually start opening like sales like for that year in January. So you order them in January, they ship in March. You plant them ahead of time, and we'll get into all those details.
Yeah, and you want to talk about like what you're doing right now with them later on in the episode as well. We'll start with the history.
What I did all this afternoon.
Yeah, but yeah.
So let's start in the very beginning, like with the history,
A very
brief history, because I think you can better appreciate the flower when you know a little bit more about it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's how I started to really appreciate dahlias. But I think it's interesting because did you know that they were first discovered between 1525 and 1552 in Mexico.
It's amazing.
So they were discovered a really long time, but they did not, they disappeared off the records until 1787. So there's a really long time where down in Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, that's where they were found, and they knew them down there. People would go back in like the 1700s when they would go on these expeditions to find plants. And actually it was a French explorer that was sent down to find insects. And when in 1787, when he was down in that area, he actually found a whole garden of dahlias.
In Oaxaca.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But they were a secret. I mean, I guess he just didn't like bring them back or tell anybody for about 10 years. And so that's why, they just kind of didn't hit that English and French flower market until much, much later. And it was actually Marie Antoinette that fell in love with dahlias. And so we kind of give her some credit to really bringing some notoriety to dahlias. Before that, dahlias were actually used as a food source for the Aztecs.
Mm-hmm.
And the Aztecs thought that they could cure like epilepsy, and they would use them as like water pipes. And
Because they have
so
little tubers like potatoes, like
they
or
are.
yams or whatever, like
Yes. So that's what they actually, and they still do.
very starchy. Yeah.
Yes. They still use them as a food source in like South America.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I dig dahlia and I look at these huge tubers, I'm like, you cannot eat this. The flower is too pretty. But that was definitely a food source for them. So,
And they use the hollow stems for
yep.
like water pipes too.
So they did, yeah. Yeah, because it's amazing because you see these beautiful flowers and the stems are actually hollow.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, that's what makes them very brittle. So you do have to be very careful. And with those great big flower heads, you do have to stake them.
Yes.
Because those hollow water pipes, they do have a tendency of breaking. But dahlias actually became the favorite flower of Queen Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a very symbolic meaning if you are into like the meaning of flowers, but the personal sentiments of commitment and dignity and elegance, and so those are kind of those things that are
So it's
associated with
befitting
dahlias.
that you love them so much.
You're exactly right. It is. So, what about the name of dahlia?
So the name Dahlia was actually in honor of a Swedish botanist named Anders Dahl, and he was an understudy to the father of the botanist Carl Linnaeus.
So the father of botany, that's who he studied under. So Linnaeus was the one that decided, back in the 1700s, are you a plant or are you an animal? And that's basically how they started categorizing things.
And created the binomial nomenclature system
exactly.
that we use for genus, species, and all that. Yep.
All of that. It started with Linnaeus, and Anders Dahl is the one that studied under that.
And although it was actually rooted in some controversy, namely the insistence among the German botanists that the plant be named Georgina, because the Germans had their own star botanist named Johann Gottlieb Georgi, and the Germans they said that should be the one that this dahlia was named after, and they actually stuck to that until well into the middle of the 19th century, but then finally the name dahlia stuck on and held.
Yeah, they were going to fight for that, I think. Yep. So another really interesting point on dahlias is that dahlias are actually octoploid, which means they have 8 sets of chromosomes where most plants only have 2.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
It is. And so for that reason alone, that's why there are 42 species and about 20,000 cultivars of dahlias.
The vast variety is what really blew my mind. Just what you have going in our garden, it's quite stunning. I mean, they really come in all shapes and sizes, and it's amazing.
Well, and then so if you, and of course I have not, but if you collected seed from dahlias, it's because of being octoploids that when you start seeding dahlias, you can get such a wide variety. I think the only color that a dahlia does not come in is blue,
Mm-hmm.
but they do have purples.
Which blue is the most rare
Flower,
color,
yeah.
in the flower world. But
So the American Dahlia Society actually recognizes 18 different flower forms of dahlias.
just the forms, not
Yes, just the forms. I could list them, but 18 might get a little long.
But I mean, they go from everything from like a water lily, peony, cactus, semi-cactus,
Oh yeah, formals and informals.
ball, miniature ball, orchid. I mean, they just on
It
and
just
on
goes
and
on and on and on. Yeah, and I have to admit, even though I grow dahlias and I have a ton of them in our garden, if you don't know the definition of what is expected for a formal versus an informal, it does get a little confusing.
You have a favorite type, or they're all?
Oh my gosh. that's like asking me who's my favorite child or my favorite animal that we grow or we have here on the farm.
So she literally, back to the obsession. So
Yeah,
we usually have to go in out at night, and we have a solar door for the chickens, which works out really great. The chickens are very good about going in
they
at
go in at
dusk,
dusk.
and we have a solar powered chicken door that closes, and it's wonderful. I would love to get one of those for the duck
They wouldn't
house.
do it.
However, our ducks, for some reason, love to sit outside and by moonlight and wait for us to come out there and escort them into their house.
It's a personal invitation every night.
So we have to go out there with a flashlight and march the ducks in. It's kind of
Yeah.
like the hotel, the Peabody,
the
bringing
Peabody, but you can't go out too early. It has to be dark. If it's too early, they won't go in.
So Hope, during the wintertime, a lot of times she likes me to go out and take care of
Oh
things,
yeah,
which I get. But this time of year, sometimes she doesn't mind as much. So she'll go out and put the ducks away, and then a half hour later, I'm like, okay, are you okay? What's happening? She's out there looking at her dahlias with a flashlight,
yes.
going through, looking at the blooms by flashlight or moonlight, just checking things out and kind of admiring them. And
Well,
yes.
and I have to admit that if I go out in the daylight, I have a tendency of going, oh, look at that one. Oh, look at this one. Oh, run over here. But if I have my flashlight, I can only see what the spotlight is shining on. So it gives me time to like really look at
They're
what
on stage. They're little
Yes.
divas presenting themselves.
Exactly. And I do a lot of disbudding, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But yes, that's when I usually get most of my dahlia gardening done. Is
Sorry
by,
for the sidebar, but I think it's funny.
oh well. So okay, so we kind of talked about when you purchase dahlias is in that kind of January, February time. But what you're really doing is you're purchasing the tuber. So you kind of mentioned that earlier that the tuber looks kind of like a sweet potato.
Yeah, it's more of the long, like a
It's-
long skinny. It's kind of funny looking, like a little funny little thing.
They are. But what's interesting is that you have to make sure that your tuber has a neck and it has eyes. And that sounds really funny, but that's the growing point.
Yes.
So, like potatoes have an eye, but the dahlias, their eyes are on the neck.
Yeah, you need that neck because that's the apex. Yeah.
Yes. So when you purchase tubers in January, and that's when most companies are going to have, like, they're going to release which varieties they're going to have and how many they're going to have of that variety. You're going to get a tuber, and that's what you're ordering. And so a tuber looks like a sweet potato, but it has to have a neck, and then off of that neck, they're going to have eyes at the top. So, and that's where the new growth is going to start, is from those eyes. If you do not have those eyes or a neck, then unfortunately you have what's called a blind tuber.
Which it looks like a potato, and normally you would think, oh, it's okay, but it has to have those other elements.
Yes. And when you get them, those eyes, just like little bitty nubs. You don't, it's when it starts growing from those eyes is when you start seeing, that new growth and what a tuber is going to look like.
So you're going to order those in January and February, like you do with all your catalogs, which
Yes.
you love to do. And then they ship them in March, April, right?
Yes. And you're going to pot those up if you can. Pot them up.
Ideally, pot them up in kind of
Keep them in a,
protected area.
yes. You don't want to get it like real warm, but
So like in the past, you've done our basement.
I've done it in the
your
basement.
your little art studio room where
Uh-huh.
you've got a little bit of sunlight, natural light coming in, and you also do like supplemental light sometime.
Well, if I do it in the garage, which I've gotten to the point where I have too many for the art room, I take one whole side of the garage. So it's like one
I
car.
think you're about to take the whole entire garage.
Yeah, probably so this coming year. Yes. But I pot them up and I keep them in there. And I do have grow lights
Yeah.
on them.
To help them a little bit.
So I don't want to plant those out until.
Because they do not like cold.
No. They, coming from Mexico, they like that warmer weather. So I want them to get growing and get started before I put them out in the ground.
Just like your vegetable starts.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you put them out too soon, they're just going to stall and there's a chance that tuber is going to rot. So really when that soil temperature gets about 60 degrees is the best. And then you're going to put them out. When you plant them out, if you don't have a way of staking like a whole bed, which this year I used it's kind of a plastic mesh that I staked on 4 corners of the raised beds, and then it grew up through that mesh. This is when you want to put a stake in. So, but you are going to plant your tubers about 4 to 6 inches deep. Make sure that the eyes or that new growth, obviously is coming up. They do want fertile, well-drained soil because remember we're dealing with a tuber, so you don't want it to rot. And really that pH about 6 to 6.5 is what's going to be best. Now, Here's the big kicker. Dahlias are very, very heavy feeders.
And you can see why when they put on their growth. I mean,
Oh my
they grow
gosh,
so
yes,
fast, and there's a lot of biomass there going
there
on.
is. But you don't want a heavy nitrogen because really we're trying to get flowers.
Interesting.
So nitrogen is going to give you a lot of leaves. It's not going to encourage buds and flowers. So really if you do something like a 5-10-10 or a 5-20-20, that's what's going to be best for dahlias because you really want to push flower buds. So when that dahlia plant gets about 12 inches, this breaks my heart every spring. But when they get 12 inches, you're going to pinch the top out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, you pinch them back like you do your mums.
You do. But it just is, it breaks your heart because you've worked so hard to like grow these dahlias up and then you're going to take the top out of them.
Yeah.
But really what that does is it encourages side growth. So you're going to get
That
more
nice
flowers.
bushy.
Yes.
And that's
If
what I
you-
was amazing. Sorry to cut you off.
No,
but
go ahead.
Some of your varieties, the foliage. I mean, the blooms are obviously the showstopper, and they're spectacular. But some have really quite lovely foliage. I mean,
Oh,
very
yeah.
landscape worthy ornamental foliage, and some are almost shrub like a peony. It's a big, heavy, nice, thick foliage. Is quite spectacular.
It really is. They're very pretty. I mean, and you've got some that have really big leaves and then you have some that have very deeply
Kinda
cut leaves.
lasting, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So,
So they're heavy feeders. They
Yes.
use lots of water. You got to
Yes.
keep them moist, but well drained, critical, because otherwise those tubers will rot out.
exactly.
And they also, because of that, slugs love them too, don't they?
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Yes. You do have to try to, keep
Knock
an
on
eye
wood,
out.
you've been pretty lucky with that, though, right? Have you used a lot of diatomaceous earth like you did on other stuff in the
No,
past? Or
this year I did not have. Last year I had a heavy slug pressure. This year I really
you
did
really
not.
haven't. It's been interesting.
Yeah. So once you pinch those out, that's when you're going to start seeing that growth on the side. So you're going to get a lot more stems. So when you plant your tuber, and we touched on this just a second ago, but you're going to plant your tuber, and then that's when you're actually going to put a stake in if you don't have a method to stake
And you've
that whole
tried
bed.
multiple. I mean, there's so many different ways to stake these guys, but I mean,
Yes.
you're still trying to figure out your favorite method. But like last year or this past year, you've had some pretty good success with a couple of methods.
Yes. So this year I used that plastic netting because I'm doing them in raised beds. So I put
It's kinda
stakes
the
at the
same-
four corners, did that netting all the way down that bed, and then they grow up through that netting.
It's like a peony cage, basically. I mean, the same.
I've
same
used tomato
principle.
cages. I've used peony cages. I've done bamboo stakes. I've done this new netting.
No, but the netting. Well, the netting is perfect for yours because you have raised beds.
Yes.
And you have like a bunch of plants in those raised
Yes.
beds, and so you're able to do like a large area.
Instead of trying to stake each individual
We're not
one.
saying like the peanut cages, but they come up. You do that early, then they grow up through that, and
Right.
it helps hold them. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, if you don't stake your dahlias, remember that hollow stem,
Yeah.
they're going to fall over.
And snap.
Well, they may just grow because they can't hold the weight up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, some of them did. Yeah, we did have some that fell over and that kept on growing, didn't
They
they?
just kept growing, but they kind of lay down when they're growing. So you're not getting that full effect of the dahlia.
Because they're so heavy.
Yes. And then you've got those great big giant blooms and they really, really need to be staked. Make sure you get that stake deep in the ground. And then as soon as we talked about when you pinch them back at 12 inches, make sure you start attaching that new growth to your stake. So, yes. And a
you spent-
strong wind will definitely take them out. So, yep.
Yes. I know. You were always out there after storms trying to make sure things were okay.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, like any perennial, annual, heavy flowering plant, you want to deadhead them, I assume, all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, weekly or
Yes. So when you go outside to put your ducks away with your flashlight,
pinch them
make
back.
sure you take your pruners with you, deadhead them. Yes, because think about, if you take the head, that, dead flower off, it allows that plant to put that energy back into the new buds.
Yes.
Now, talking about new buds. When I went out at night, if I wasn't deadheading, I was doing what's called disbudding. So a dahlia wants to bloom is the best way I can explain it. And so it's going to shoot up a main flower bud, but then it's going to try to put two on either side of it that are smaller. And then you go down to the next set of leaves and it's going to try to put another flower bud on, each side. And then you go down to your third set. It's just going to keep trying to put new
Sure.
buds. So what I really want is all of that energy from the plant to go to that one single beautiful flower
To
bloom.
get that really show-stopping.
Yes.
Like,
So I go out and I disbud the two next to the main flower bud that I want. I take those off, and then I actually go down 2 to 3 layers of leaves and disbud each of those. That's also going to give me a long, straight stem for a cut flower.
And let me just tell you guys, I mean, this is no joke, but we had the most amazing dahlia bouquets in our house this year, thanks to your garden. And it was great because you're able to take them to friends' houses and your mom's and share them. And they're just, I mean, they are spectacular bouquets and cut flowers in the house.
Yes. Now, some varieties do cut flower better than others.
Sure, yeah.
Some are just, you just admire them on that plant because they're not going to hold up. One thing I learned this year, and from what I can tell, it really is true. When you cut a dahlia, if you want it to extend the vase life, you actually need to put it in water that's about 160 degrees.
Yeah, I noticed you were using really hot water.
Yes, I use the hottest water that I can either get out of the tap or I just put the kettle on the stove. And
that's pretty much for all dahlias?
Yes, for all dahlias. You want it between about 160 and 180 degrees. That will open up those the pores or the cells and allow water to come up into the stem, and it will actually increase your
turgor pressure.
Yes, the turgor pressure. It'll increase the bloom life.
Yeah,
of a cut flower.
It's really interesting. I know when I took the herbaceous plants class with Sharon Bale at UK, she was a master of cut flowers and just all the different techniques that florists use to preserve cut flowers, like you were talking about, whether it's hot water or there's all these
put them in the refrigerator or something. Yes,
all kinds of different things.
There are. So it actually takes about 120 days for a dahlia tuber to mature and produce tubers for next year.
Okay.
So when you plant your tubers, once you start pinching them back when they're 12 inches tall, that's usually about the time where I start counting my 120 days. But I really want to make sure that those have 120 days of good growing, period, so that I can ensure that I've got dahlia tubers for next year when I dig up.
Okay.
Yes.
But you also kind of watched it with temperatures in the weather too, right? Or no?
Well, you do, because, like I said, they enjoy that warmer weather. So once we start having frost or really cold temperatures, they will burn.
But that's, if you're trying to get your tubers harvested, that's good to let them go through that first killing frost, correct?
That first killing frost, yes. And then you're going to cut, when you start to dig. And of course, I've gone through, before I know that we're going to have a frost, I go through and I make sure that all of my plants are labeled with the varieties that they are.
Because you made the mistake of not having that in the past.
We have in the past.
It made you absolutely mental.
Well, so I have 2 varieties that I've got, a blue 22 and a red 22. I got those in 2022, and one has a red bloom and one has a blue bloom, but I have no idea what variety those are.
Guys, let me tell you, she has spent hours trying to scour her notes and her catalogs, and it's driven you about crazy trying to figure out which one it is.
But, I do. I now keep track of all of my packing, my pre-orders, my packing slips, my invoices, so I know exactly who I bought that variety from, what variety it was from that particular farm, what the price was, how many I got from them. So I keep a very diligent track of what I have.
So after that killing frost.
So yes, after I label those, we have a killing
You're
frost.
not going to let me talk, are you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't know if you want me to try chime in or not, a little bit or not.
Of course, you're welcome to chime in anytime. But yes, I do get a little bit overzealous about talking with about my dahlias.
So after the killing frost, they need to be dug, and it's kind of like digging potatoes, right? So
yes.
you're going to take a fork or a spade and kind of gently lift them out.
So what I typically do is I cut the foliage off, and I leave about 6 to...
A little stem, yeah.
Yes, so I have a stem, but I cut that off. So that way I'm not trying to wrangle a bunch of dead flower stems. And then you're exactly right. You dig them up, dig your tubers very, very carefully because you don't want to damage them.
They damage more easily than potatoes do, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want them to develop like a skin over top of that tuber. So when you dig them, you have to be very careful not to scratch them. You're going to gently shake that dirt off, or rinse it off with a water hose gently, and then let them cure. And they need to cure for about 2 days.
They're quite an interesting little cluster. They remind me of those little mandrakes from Harry Potter.
Yes. Yes, they do. Because, what is amazing is you plant one tuber in the spring, And then this time of year, I'm digging. And,
Some of them are huge.
oh, I can get like 25 or 30
It's
tubers
massive,
ready
yeah.
for next year. Now some, like I've got one variety that, I may only have 3 tubers that are good for next year off of it. And I let them cure. There's 2 schools of thought. You can either divide your tuber in the fall and have them ready for next year, or if you want to hold that big clump, let it cure, store it over winter, which we're going to talk about storing, but then divide it in the spring when you can see those eyes more
Isn't
visible.
that what you did last year?
No, last year was the first time I actually divided them in the fall, and I
Okay.
had really
I
good
was gonna say you
success with
had
that.
really good luck, whatever you did last
I
year.
did. I had really good luck
But
last
you
year.
worked on them for. Oh, you did divide them in the fall.
Yes, I took your
Because I
whole
remember.
garage, the detached garage,
Yeah,
in
you were sitting there for hours at night.
hours.
Yes,
Yes, I had table set up, and
it was quite a scene.
yes, it was. But I did it successfully. I was very happy with it. I
And
started.
your work paid off. Again, I can't. I mean, you turned me to the Dahlia
I brought you
side.
to the other side.
Yeah, it's they're impressive.
When I started dividing last year, I was very apprehensive because I mean, you're getting very sharp hand pruners, scissors, any
Oh yeah.
method, and you're very diligently trying to see, okay, I have this tuber, where's the neck, where are the eyes, how is it connected, how am I going to cut it without damaging someone else? Another tuber. And then I started storing them in wood shavings because that's what we had for the animal bedding. And then I chose to go with vermiculite.
Vermiculite, good old horticultural vermiculite.
I did. I ordered some horticulture vermiculite offline, had it delivered right to the house, and I started storing them in vermiculite. Personally, that's what worked best for me. You can use peat, you can use wood shavings. There are some people that are brave enough that actually wrap them in like saran wrap.
Oh wow, that doesn't hold in too much moisture.
Well, you have to check them.
Because I say what was so great about this is you were able to. Because in the past, I know you've had trouble with kind of like getting too moist or rotting or something like that.
Too
With this,
dry,
or too
yeah.
dry.
I
But
mean, either way.
this was kind of the perfect balance with the.
So I got plastic. So I got plastic storage containers, and I started off with the ones that we already had, and then some that are like that shoebox size. Well, when I started dividing, I realized that some varieties I had too many for that small of an area, so I had to get a bigger box. But you put a layer of vermiculite down, you put your tubers in, you cover them. You don't let those tubers touch. You do want to give them some space. If you need to, put another layer of vermiculite and another layer on top. And that's basically, I made sure that I had my plant tags, labels, everything in that box so I knew which variety was. And I stored those against the house wall of the attached garage.
So it was warmer.
It's warmer. Some people will put them in your basement. You don't want to keep them at like 70, even 65 at the houses. You really want to keep those at about 40 degrees because they're going to store better. But about halfway through winter, check. Make sure that you don't have too much moisture, or if they're not, too dry. If they're starting to shrivel, go ahead and just kind of give a light little misting of water. So you don't want them to dry out. You don't want them to get too wet. And a lot of times, if they have a length of time where they stay dormant, they're going to start sprouting if it gets a little bit warmer. So when I started potting up in March, they were a lot of them that were ready to be planted.
Yes, I remember you stressing about that too.
Well,
Because they're like, it's go time. We gotta get this
yes.
planted.
The clock is ticking. I got to get these in in some soil. Got them growing.
But you were very successful. I mean, you're kind of getting it. Yeah, it was.
There were a couple varieties that I had. If I had my choice, I think 3 of a variety would be a great number. There were a couple varieties that I ended up with like 20 something. So I would plant about 15 and then try to give the rest of them to people that I thought were going to be really good dahlia parents. Yeah, that would take care of them for me. So yeah, I had a really good success. I was very happy with them.
You want to talk about disease and pest problems a little bit?
Oh, that would be like the good, the bad, the ugly. So we
Yeah.
talked about the good, the beautiful flowers and everything that I love about dahlias. The bad would be some of the diseases that they can get. And you have to kind of talk about these things to, be able to appreciate and understand dahlias, especially if you're going to be a new grower, to kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, be aware of them, but don't don't worry. I mean,
Yes, don't fret because everything can get something. One thing that they can get, and I have not experienced this, is the mosaic virus. Just like
like roses.
yes, roses, tomatoes. I was more familiar with hearing about it in the tobacco industry when my dad was growing up, but it
Oh yeah,
does.
tobacco plants would get the
Yeah, they
mosaic
can
virus
get
too bad.
the
Yeah.
mosaic. Yeah. So it you can tell because the leaves kind of turn that yellow and green kind of a mosaic pattern. There's really not a lot you can do that I'm aware of. Just
Since it's a virus, you destroy
yeah,
the plant,
just
get rid of
destroy the
it, and just
plant.
don't compost it, throw it away, burn
No,
it, or
do not
yeah,
compost it. Don't.
yeah.
And really, I don't. To be honest, I don't like burning them.
I know.
I would prefer to
Just
put it in like a
plastic.
trash bag,
Yep.
throw it in the trash can, send it to the dump.
Yeah.
Just get it out of there. And make sure that you note where that occurred so that you don't plant the same thing or something else that's susceptible to it. That also is the same thing when you have like a crown gall or a leafy gall. Those are both viruses that the dahlias can get. They are more prevalent. And if you are on any type of social media like platform that talk about dahlia growers, back and forth, there's always pictures of, is this crown gall? Is this leafy gall? And it really is one of those things that once you start seeing it, you can identify it a whole lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Crown gall almost looks like cauliflower, but it's down in the tubers. You don't really see crown gall until you start digging.
Until you harvest them for fall.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, and I cannot stress this enough, disinfect all your tools. So when you're out at night, disbudding or pruning off dead flowers, I always take like Clorox wipes.
Yeah, you're running around with the Clorox wipes all the time.
All the time, and I clean between plants or between varieties, and especially if you're looking for like if you have a leafy gall, which is where you're gonna have like an unexplained or like not unexplained, but a massive profusion of growth down at the base primarily. And when you start looking at it, all of that growth is kind of fused
It's
together.
kind of unexplained because it doesn't look appropriate. I mean,
No, it
yeah,
doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But it's when it's all kind of fused together. Whereas if you just have an excited tuber that has several eyes that grow, they're not fused. It's going to be one on one side, one on the other. It's going to be a more explainable
Yeah.
amount of stem growth. And because that's what we want. We want stem growth because more stems have more flowers. It's just when you have a whole lot, like a massive amount, right in one central location, and they're fused. That's the big thing you have to look for with leafy gall. So that's kind of that. The bad. We don't want to have any of that in our beds. And if we do, definitely, like I said, disinfect your tools. Throw a diseased plant away. Do not plant in that area for 2 years, because you definitely don't want to spread that to another plant. And it is very spreadable without proper disinfecting. Now, the ugly. The ugly would be those insects. Slugs. Slugs and snails, but primarily slugs. And the reason that those are so difficult is because when you plant a tuber out that has tender young growth, those slugs can annihilate new growth in like overnight. So you really have to be careful. Make sure that you don't have slugs in your area. There's a lot of different baits that you can use. Just be aware. And of course, when you go out checking the ducks with your flashlight, you can see them at night.
Well, diatomaceous earth.
Diatomaceous, yes. Yeah, so you want to do that. The first year that I came across the next insect would be earwigs. It kind of freaked me out because they're really weird looking. They're a large insect, and the back end of them has what looks like a big claw. And they will pinch. Usually it doesn't do a whole lot of damage to you, but they will eat all of the blooms, and they can eat like one whole half of a flower bloom overnight.
It's crazy.
It is. So, they're really going to affect the petals and the blooms. And of course, that's why we grow dahlias. So we want to make sure that the earwigs are not, real prevalent. Cucumber beetles, which are like those kind of a green ladybug, they're also going to eat the blooms, and you really want to handpick those. And I know that sounds like a lot of work. It's not terrible. And you handpick those because you don't want to spray something that would damage your pollinators or the actual ladybugs. Like I said, they can munch on the blooms, the petals, and they typically go for the lighter color blooms. So that's interesting. Yeah, but they look like green ladybugs. They're just not nice and friendly like ladybugs.
Yeah.
And then another big problem would be our spider mites and our aphids. And one of the reasons why those are such a big problem is because, as they're munching on the plant and then they go to the next plant, they can also spread those viruses.
Mm-hmm.
So you do want to be sure if you can spray like a horticultural oil or something if they
Like
get to be
neem or
neat, yes, if they get out of control, because you don't want those to not only damage the plant but then spread if there is a virus from one plant to the next. So those are really kind of the insects that are primarily the worst culprits on our dahlias. So that kind of covers the good, the bad, and the ugly.
yeah, things to be aware of and keep an eye out for.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
hopefully you don't have too much problems with them.
No,
So is that Hope's synopsis of dahlias?
that is a very quick synopsis of dahlias. Yes. If anybody has any other questions about dahlias, just go ahead and email me, and I'm more than happy to talk for.
I thought you go longer. You sure you didn't? You got everything in there?
Um, on the quick version, I think so.
Okay.
But I mean, we can certainly talk about other dahlias if you want.
Since we talked about all the processes for overwintering dahlias, they're tubers that you dig up, like a potato or other bulbs. And there's so many other great garden plants, annuals type things, tropicals that we can save instead of just letting them go and actually save money for next year and overwinter those plants in your garage, your basement. I mean, these are anything from callas to tuberous begonias, elephant ears, caladiums, on and on
Yes.
and on and on. So
So if you dig those up and save money, you can buy more dahlias.
there you go. So just like we talked about, all these guys, these bulbs or tubers, they'll need to be cured, correct?
Yes. So you want to dig them up before a frost because they don't like those. Most of these are not going to like that really cold weather. So dig them up before frost, and then you're going to cure them. So and the cure time is different with
So
with
you do okay. So like totally before frost, or you let sometimes some like a lot of times I'll let things get hit, like our bananas, and not a little bit different. I realize than what we're talking
right.
about. But even like some of the elephant ears, maybe like sometimes let them get hit, or is that just maybe a one killing frost like the dahlias, but don't let them go too long.
With a lot of these, you can, yes, you can have them get hit a little bit
And
by
here I'm like
frost.
interviewing you like you're the expert, so I don't know if that's a good way to do this or not.
Yeah, that's fine.
What? What? So before we go to details on each species, we talked about drying, keep the bulbs out of direct sunlight, well ventilated areas with
Yes.
temperatures of 60 to 70 degrees for that drying period. Then
Yes,
once
for
after
that
that,
curing.
yeah,
Yes.
then they can go to a more cooling for storage. Then go to a more cool area. Before storing though, you'd want to inspect those guys for any sign of disease or insect problems. You want to destroy or remove those damaged bulbs because those will just it's like one bad apple can ruin the whole cart, right?
Exactly.
So if
You're
you got
right.
one, it's going to rot down and cause problems in the whole storage process.
So and remember that with your curing, what that does is you're taking a product that's been kind of, in the
Green
dark.
and act. Oh, I'm sorry.
Those that the tuber or those corms, they've been in the soil. They're in the dark. They're in a
Yes,
moist area. When you bring those up, you've got to have that curing time because what that does is it creates that protective skin.
it does. It kind of
And
dries it out a little bit because that
yes,
hard kind of outside layer.
so you want to make sure that you cure it for the right amount of time so that it protects it.
Hmm. As we also said, dried bulbs can be stored in 2 to 3 inches of vermiculite, wood shavings, peat moss, or coconut core.
A storage area should be in a cool area around 40 to 50 degrees so it doesn't allow them to freeze, but they stay dormant.
Yeah, unfinished basement or attached garage. Well, we were always worried about your dahlias like getting too cold in our garage, but I guess they never did really go below. I mean, I feel like sometimes we went to 30, but maybe not.
Well, because they were close to
That
the
wall.
warmer side, they were not close to, opening the garage door. And because they're packed in that vermiculite, it worked as, kind of a little cushion to those colder temperatures.
And again, these are all reviews of what you said about the dahlias, but it's all good standard things. Periodically check your bulbs and tubers through the winter. Make sure, it's kind of check their moisture levels, see how things are looking, if they're shrinking or withering. Lightly spray them with a spray,
Squirt bottle.
yeah, a squirt bottle. Or that they're too wet. And if you see humidity building up, you don't want that because it'll rot and cause mold and things to grow and things like that.
Yes. If you see humidity that or condensation on the sides of the storage container, open that top, let them kind of air out for a day or two, and then close them back up.
And you had some specific tips for some of these different species.
Yes. So these are just some that are very commonly grown in our area that You can overwinter by digging them up and not have to buy them for the next year. So the first one were the tuberous begonias. There are so many amazing begonias, but those
Love them.
tuber ones, if you want to dig those up, if you have them planted out in the landscape, you're going to dig them before a very really heavy frost. Allow them to cure for about a week or two,
Hmm.
actually. Leave about 5 inches of stem intact. Remove that soil from the tuber, and then you're going to store them at about 50 degrees. So these are actually
A
ones
little
that you're going to
warmer.
stay. Yes. So if you have like a dark, like a basement or an area of the house that maybe is unheated, that's the best place to store those. Caladiums, you're going to lift those before any frost. So these are ones that you're actually going to hopefully have already lifted. You're going to allow those to,
That's true because they don't like it.
they do not like a frost. You're going to allow those to also cure for 1 to 2 weeks. Remove any soil, cut that foliage off,
And
and then store them a warmer temperature of 60 degrees.
callas, like your calla lilies, you're going to cure the rhizomes for 2 to 3 weeks in a warm location. Clean off any soil, remove the dried stems, and store those at 45 to 55 degrees. So all these are pretty warm storage type species, aren't they?
Yes.
Cannas, this is where I like this is the model I use a lot, but you can have a good frost kind of hit those tops, but not a freeze. So that you want to just like a nice frost like we've had. They'll hit them good, kind of knock those tops down, and then you harvest that and allow the roots to dry or cure for 1 or 2 days. So not as long as some is they're quicker, and then you can wrap those in newspaper or a paper bag. This is like what we were talking about earlier, a little different than what we were talking about, but with the banana trees. You know, last year I macheted the top out of those things
Yes, you
and
did.
brought them out of the pot, and these were huge bananas. I mean, they were big trees that we had, and we were worried about it, but we rolled them in newspaper and just stored them like this big, long bat-looking thing, and they did great, and they're beautiful now.
Hmm. They did a fantastic job. Probably the best storage that we've had.
It was the easiest because we didn't have to move the 50-gallon pots that we had them planted in, those huge pots.
Hmm.
That's always been hard to move those with a dolly. But the cannas are kind of a similar thing. And you've done that too. Although you've left, it's interesting. Cannas, you can kind of, if you get a nice microclimate, because you've got them on our little retaining wall area. So we got a driveway that they're getting some residual heat from that. And then they're in a little bed that's against a retaining wall block wall. And those overwintered fine, just like that.
Well, and that brick wall also gets the sun, well, the winter
So
sun.
it warms that, yeah, it keeps that soil. It's a microclimate, it warms it up.
Yes.
But most of the time you have to harvest them and bring them in if you want to keep them going. And so he said, wrap them in newspaper or a paper bag. Those materials keep them dry, and that's particularly important for cannas because they could rot pretty easily because there's so much moisture in that plant. And store those at pretty warm, 45, 50 degrees.
And then you can divide those in the spring, but make sure that each division has like 3 eyes. And we talked about eyes on dahlias, but cannas will have those as well.
Gladiolus, tell us about the glads. You love your glads.
I do love my glads. That's one of those flowers that I remember my grandmother had in
Mm-hmm.
the garden at the farm every year, and she would have them throughout the house all summer. So that's very sentimental to me, but I love glads. So you're going to lift that plant after the first light frost. You're going to gently shake off any soil, excess soil, but you don't want to wash them because you don't want to get them wet.
Really?
You're going to cut that stem back to about 2 inches. Let those corms cure
Another.
for 1 to 2 days. So then you're going to pack those corms in a paper bag for about 3 weeks and check for any shriveled or discarded, the ones that don't look good.
And just like our cannas that we had that actually overwintered, and that was an accident because we didn't get a chance to dig them up, but they did fine. Didn't you have some gladiolus that came back in our raised planters too in your dahlia garden?
Yes,
What did they? Now did they reseed or they actually just come back because it was a microclimate again?
both.
So you had reseeded, and they came back from the actual.
So with corms, you can actually a mature corm can start little pups on the end, like on the sides of them, and so I have a lot of those little guys that have
But you also think
started.
they seeded too?
I think yes, they have. Some of them have seeded. The amazing thing is, before we did our raised beds, I had a row of glads in the garden when we just did
Mm-hmm.
standard rows. We built the raised beds, and so I have some that are trying to grow out from underneath the cinder blocks. So every year I have a few extras that I have to dig up and move.
So if they're in the right place, they can come back. Obviously, I mean, because I was amazed that we had these gladiolus. Because I was like, when did you plant those? Like, oh, they just came back. I was like,
Right. Now, that happened. They come back in the garden in the raised beds. I moved some of them and planted them in a landscape bed, and they did not come back.
probably rotted out,
Very possibly.
moisture.
Yes. So, not if you leave them, they may not come back. Just know kind of that growing condition. Mm-hmm. And it is best to raise them,
Oh yeah,
to store them over winter.
absolutely. Another plant that can actually, if you get in the right place, can come back, but and be happy is elephant ears. But again, it's a best practice to go
Yes.
ahead and lift those plants, those bulbs.
Or if you have them in a
Tubers, I should
container,
say.
you can actually
tuber.
bring them in the wintertime and use them as a house plant.
Oh yeah,
You have to have enough room because they're kind of large.
elephant ears are a very versatile plant. You got colocasia, alocasia, and I love these plants from a landscape perspective. There's nothing like that. Tropical foliage is spectacular, and there's so many great varieties. But you're right; they can be very effective if you get as a house plant and you have the space, and especially if you can put them in like if you have a larger restaurant or a bathroom where the humidity level is kind of high.
Yes, they like that warm, humid
Yeah.
growing condition. But they are a tuber that you want to lift before frost. Clean off any extra soil and let them cure or dry out for a day or two. Remove any of that soft or damaged stems. And then store that tuber in a vermiculite and check frequently through the winter.
And if you notice, there seems to be several common themes running through all these. They're pretty similar instructions for storing all these things. You know, some things vary a little bit, temperatures, those kind of things. But like everything, the reason I kept interjecting the whole point of like some of these annuals or bulb type things actually coming back is that plants are constantly surprising us. I mean, you never know what, right? I mean,
Oh, constantly, yes.
especially if you get the plant in the right place, the right,
Right plant, right place, and microclimates are wonderful.
Yeah.
So let's just do a really quick overview. If you didn't take notes and you wanted to maybe pull some of these plants and try to overwinter them. So with a caladium,
They need the most heat, it looks like.
they do. You're going to cure those for 1 to 2 weeks, and you're going to store them around 60 degrees.
So that's pretty warm. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah. The calla lilies, the rhizomes, you're going to store those around 50 degrees. That's the second most warm. And the curing time is about 2 to 3 weeks. But again, at 50 degrees. So a little bit cooler, 10 degrees cooler, but still pretty warm.
So your canna lilies, you're actually going to only cure those for 1 to 2 days after you lift those, and you're going to store them at about 45 degrees. Dahlias, love those. You're going to cure those for 1 to 2 days, and then store those also about 45 degrees. So an unheated garage.
That makes it, the cooler temperatures make it easy because of the garage, I think, if you don't have the basement space. Elephant ears, like we talked about, 1 to 2 weeks curing time. So longer than the dahlias and longer than the cannas, more like the callas or the caladiums, and around 55 degrees.
So a little bit warmer, yes. And then, of course, our gladiolas, those are actually corms. You're going to cure those for 2 to 3 weeks, and you're going to store those at about 40 degrees.
So the curing time on the glads and the callas are the longest.
So there you go.
You go.
That's how you store a lot of these tubers and rhizomes and corms so that you're not buying them next year. You can save yourself a little bit of money with just a little bit of effort.
You really can. That's when gardening gets really fun, is when you actually can start saving plants, propagating them, and doing it yourself, saving money.
And sharing them with friends.
Sharing them. I mean, yeah, that was the cool thing about your dahlias. I was like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do with all these dahlias? And you're like, oh, I'll give them to my friends. And they loved them. So
They love the flowers. And then you can trade tubers with them and share them.
trade tubers like you trade baseball cards. Right?
Exactly. Any great tubers out there for dahlias that you love, let me know about.
She will gladly trade with you. A swap meet at Hope's. All
That's
right.
a great idea.
Well, that's it. So thank you so much for joining us. Anything else? You're looking at me like, what? She's taking her glasses off. She's throwing her headphones down. She's out.
I'm out. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all. Thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners. Please subscribe or follow us to get new episode updates, and please drop a rating or review. If you have a question, either gardening, landscape, or horticulturally related, you can email us at gwtg@boonegardener.com. Thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners.